All right. For this episode, I have brought on Jeff Mocini. Super excited to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm truly grateful for this.
Jeff and I actually met last fall. We were part of an online entrepreneur group program and ended up in the same core group. And what I loved most about Jeff and why I brought him on is that he's super supportive. He's very focused, which we will dive into. And Jeff, I feel that you are very determined.
I am very much so. I am very clear about what I want in my life, and I'm taking actions every day to get there, no matter how big or small they are. If I'm failing forward. If I'm succeeding, I'm going forward. It's only one direction.
I like that, failing forward. So give us a little background. Where are you located? What do you do?
Right now, I am located in Melbourne, Florida, in Central Florida. I'm working as a software engineer right now for a communications company, but I am actively working to get out of that profession to pursue a passion of mine to give back to the golf community. I've played golf a lot in my life ever since I was the age of 5. My dad has been a club professional and part of the PGA for over 30 years. And we came up with this amazing idea to give back to the golf community. And with about 9 or 10 months of relentless work and pursuit, we've invented a way to get the slope of the ground that you're standing on when you're out on the course. This is going to be very useful for when you're out putting so that you can maybe increase your chances of making putts out there and lowering your scores if you have that information in front of you.
Well, and about that, so can you give me a little more in depth? Like, what do you love most, and why are you so passionate about golf?
Well, it all comes down to one fundamental thing. My dad was a very big role model to me at a very young age. I've always wanted to be like him. I always loved what he did. There were times when I was younger where I would just forge bus passes at school just to come see him at work, even when I didn't know whether if he was there or not. There was one story where I forged a bus pass and he ended up not being there, and I was scared. I was scared so much that I didn't know where my family was going to be, and but at the same time, it's mainly more of just wanting to be around him, and I kind of wanted to emulate what he's done because he made a run at professional golf at a very early age before my brothers and I were born, and it's always something that I've wanted to do just to kind of extend that dream, even though I've adopted it as my own. Um, it's simply a matter of I believe that's what my purpose is in life, is to overcome the odds that I've had to come up against growing up and do something great and share my unique talents with the world.
Do you care to dive in a little, like what have you overcome?
Oh, that's a very good question. I've overcome a lot, actually.
What
If you were to
maybe,
ask me,
yeah, if you had to choose like the one specific or maybe the earliest memory that you can come up with, what was that and how has it brought you to today?
well, if you were to ask me today, if I told you that I was used to be on the autism spectrum, people would look at me absolutely like I'm insane or delusional. But the fact of the matter is, I was diagnosed with hyperlexia at a very young age, which is one of the classifications under the autism spectrum. And that created a lot of social challenges for me growing up. Even though I was very smart, very bright, I was able to read at a very high level in about kindergarten and first grade. However, I did not have the social skills equivalent to a preschooler at that time. So there was a lot of challenges that I had to overcome as far as just being able to communicate just in general through speech therapy classes and reenactment with my family. It's really given me that why in my life, because my life could have turned out absolutely differently if it wasn't for the hard work, intervention, and the continued belief in me from my mom. I mean, my the
I'm
school
getting
system that
chills. Yeah.
yeah, the school system that I was suggesting that I go to a special education school, and my mom decided right then and there that that was not going to be my path. This was about what I was like 1.5 or 2 at the time, and she saw something in me that I did not at a very early age, and it took me forever to realize how special that I truly am, because I've always had identity issues growing up, trying to fit in with certain crowds, just trying to find my place in the world. But what was missing all along is that if I was just simply myself, that I would attract others to me. That's just kind of the biggest thing as far as adolescence is concerned, is we often try so hard to find the approval of others
Yeah.
when we forget that we carry a lot of greatness to the world, and we just simply have to share it in order to bring others to us.
So what I love about what you touched on is I can relate to you, not in the autism spectrum, but the feeling in, um, I'm sorry, fitting in with your core group and social circles. And I've always, I can remember, gosh, back in like elementary school, I just never quite felt like I fit in. And I finally have come to the place where my motto is be you, be authentic. Don't ever try to be a second rate version of somebody else. So, with hindsight
Yeah.
2020 and being an adult now, what are you most grateful for from your experience?
The fact that I am here in Florida, I grew up in Michigan, and I'm creating a life for myself that I'm actually authoring.
Awesome.
I'm not dependent on anybody. I'm very driven towards my goals and want to be the best that I can be. Not just be the best that I can be, but to dominate in whatever I choose to do. I've always found myself uh, having like a competitor's edge, always wanting to win. That's just kind of the environment that I grew up with, having 2 brothers. But that carried on to other areas of my life. It carried a lot in golf. It carried a lot in my academics. It carried a lot with the lines of work that I've been in. But there's something missing during all this. Is a matter of appreciation for all that I do, because we often fall in that trap. If you have that competitive spirit, you always that you it's easy to fall into the trap of perfectionism, which is the Achilles heel of me for so many years, where no matter how well you do, no matter how hard you work, no matter what you put in, I always felt like I never was good enough.
Never
because
enough.
because again, it was mainly more the misconception of trying to seek approval of others, which is what it was stemming from. It's like, what are my parents going to say? What are my brothers going to say? What are my teammates going to say? What are my classmates going to say? What is my coach going to say? But the main question I forgot to ask myself is, what am I going to say?
Yeah. So I want to touch a little bit more about the golf game because I have golfed, over the last several years. I'm not phenomenal by any means, but golf scrambles are definitely my most favorite. So how can you relate the golf game?
They are a fun time.
Yeah. How do you relate the golf game into more of real life?
I only got half of that question. Sorry.
Oh, did I cut out?
Yeah, it was kind of cutting out every so often, so I was trying to make sure I got the question, but I only got half of it.
Okay, so how can you relate the golf game to real, like everyday life?
It's a continuous test of your character. You're going to be faced with situations that you may not expect. You're going to be faced with situations that are not pleasant. You're going to be faced with a lot of challenges mentally. And I've been reading the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. That's one of my goals for the year, is to read that entire book every day. And when we lose grasp of trying to control the outcomes instead of what we think about those outcomes, then we're in a much bigger place of power versus being at the mercy of these circumstances. So with every golf experience that I have, it is very different. My body's going to be feeling differently. I'm going to be thinking differently. My energy levels are going to be feeling differently. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to how I react to all those things. Even when I'm playing well, there's still that there's still some challenges associated with that as well. Like if you're going to, build on it, or are you going to try to dial yourself back? Simply because we self-impose limits on ourselves, and a lot of us don't even realize it.
Oh, for sure. And I believe that's a lot of I mean, everybody's biggest, what's holding us back is our limiting beliefs. And on top of that, our subconscious beliefs. And I've realized more recently by sitting back and reflecting and doing journaling that I had things happen to me at a young age, and I didn't realize that was the root of why I am where I am today, kind of thing. So I was able
Mm-hmm.
to understand that, realize that, grow from it, and realize I don't that it doesn't have to be my story anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to a self development course a year and a half ago, where I really learned what those stories that I kept telling myself were. Is like, what I do is never good enough, and 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 B, I just had the experience of a golfer who was heartbroken as an 11-year-old boy who shot the best 9 holes of his life, but then fails to sign a scorecard simply because I didn't understand what that meant. That was just kind of one of the byproducts of being under the spectrum, and I ended up being disqualified. And as an 11-year-old boy, and you played the best round ever, it feels like the absolute end of the world.
Yeah.
But little did I know what kind of damage that caused to my psyche, and it just kind of just I just kept putting mask over mask over mask over mask, because we often don't want to look bad in front of others.
For
It's just
sure.
our egos are just kind of like run the show most of the time, and it can't bear the thought of looking vulnerable or looking absolutely horrible in front of other people. And the main challenge behind overcoming all that is accepting that it's okay to look bad. It's a matter of what you do next with that, and accepting that everything that you plan out will not go to plan. It never has, and never does.
Yeah.
So you might as well build your resiliency while you're going through that process. And chances are, if you focus on that process, you're going to get the results that you want at the end of the day.
And I think what I'm hearing you say is to let go, let flow. So us trying to hold on to, control, restrict outcomes, or how we think things are going to go, and knowing that they don't always go as planned. If we can be more flexible in the way of life, then it just feels a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's less work, it's less energy.
Yeah.
And not only that, you're able to fully be in that moment and appreciate it for everything that it is.
So how about, can you tell me on a higher note, what's the feeling like of accomplishment? Maybe when you win that round or you win a championship, or tell us about the energy and what do you feel in those moments?
Well, it's funny that you asked that, because last December I won my first tournament in 12 years. So, in all honesty, I did not know what that felt like before then. But what I do recall from that very cold day, where it was like 50 degrees, blowing about 20, 25 miles an hour, um, I remember sinking that last putt and knowing that nobody was going to beat me that day. And there was not going to be this like giant pit that I'd have to like carry in my stomach at the end of the day for not not being on top. And for the first time in my life, I had gotten an individual trophy for a golf tournament, and like it honestly moved me to tears, simply because I've never experienced that even as a junior golfer, where a lot of these players with success just win tournament after tournament after tournament after tournament. But I was not going to live a life of not knowing what that feeling felt like. So if I were to give it to my best one word to describe it, is absolutely exhilarating, and you crave more of it, more and more of it.
So I want to ask you for the listeners, if they have a goal in mind, what suggestions, routines, consistency can you give them to help them along the path?
Well, the first thing is they have to act like it's already happened. Mentally, they have to picture it as it's already happened, and then operate on a frequency or find the mannerisms, find the thoughts, find the attitudes, find the actions that you need to take in order to make that vision of yours a reality. So if you're looking for clarity, one place to start would be meditation, yoga, just 30-minute walks in the park, whatever it is that brings you inner peace and ease. It's simply envisioning kind of like the feeling that you want, and taking the actions that you need to take in order to see it come to fruition. Because it's very easy for us to create negative consequences because that's powered by fear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, if I'm going to go back to the golf metaphor, if you're thinking about a water hazard that you want to avoid, chances are you're going to hit it in that water hazard because subconsciously that's all you're thinking about.
Right? What
So
you
you're
focus on expands.
exactly. So if it's a relationship that you want in your life, if it's a new job that you want in your life, if it's the courage to leave your dead end 9 to 5 job and pursue your passion, it's all about thinking about those things every single day, and letting the thought of having that one thing that gets you out of bed every morning and energizes you dictate the show for your life.
Yes. I want to share with you and as well the listeners. I have a business coach myself, but one of my favorite quotes from him is, the cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of a mistake. So that I used to sit in the feeling overwhelmed, and I would freeze and not know what next steps to take. And instead, I should have at least do something to move myself forward. And as you say, fail forward, learn something, grow
Yeah.
from it, move on, and realize maybe there's another direction. But something, do something.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we didn't fail, what would we learn? How would we grow?
I mean, how boring if everything's just handed to us, right?
Yeah, and the scary part is there's some people that actually think that's a good idea.
Right. Okay, so I have some rapid fire questions for you. You can't think about it. I ask and you have to respond. The first thing that comes to your mind, just fill in the blank.
All right.
Okay, so, and this is regarding 2018. My
Okay.
quote of the year is,
Give it your best every single day.
okay, my theme song is,
Now We Are Free by Hans Zimmer is from the Gladiator soundtrack.
okay, this chapter of my life is titled,
I'm coming up with the word. I have it. Rebirth.
oh, I like that. Okay, final question. A question that I want to guide me is,
What is my why?
oh, I like that too. Awesome. All right, Jeff, thank you so much for being on today. If the listeners want to reach out, find more about you, maybe golf or your patent invention, where can they get a hold of you?
Well, my Instagram is at Jeff Mocini, and the new product that will be coming to a local golf store to you very soon is at http://www.slopegraide.com.
Awesome. And I will insert that in the links below. Again, thanks for joining us. And I loved chatting with you.
Thank you very much, Heather. I enjoyed it too.